Hi, today we are going to be repurposing a used tank top by using natural dyes and carving a piece of linoleum to stamp a remixed design onto it, while also having a fun discussion around sustainability and implementing that into our art making practices. So let's start off by dyeing our shirt. So we are going to need 2 pots, one with 4 cups of water and one with 8 cups of water. In the pot with 8 cups, we're going to add half a cup of salt to create a salt mixture for our tank top to soak in. This will help the fabric absorb the dye that we are going to be creating. So here are some before pictures. It's just a plain white 96% cotton tank top, and so we will let that soak in our salt mixture for about an hour. Next, we will grab our 4 cups of water and add 2 cups of blackberries. We will then bring them to a simmer for about an hour. We are going to rinse that tank top that's been sitting in that salt mixture for about an hour, and we're going to leave it damp in the pot while we're waiting for our blackberry mixture. So empty the water out and you can just let it sit there. Now that our blackberries have simmered, we are going to strain them out so we are left with our dye, and then we are going to place our tank top in that dye and bring it to a boil. So once it's boiling, we're going to reduce the heat to low and check every 10 or 15 minutes for about an hour. And after that hour, turn the heat off and let it soak for at least an hour, because the longer it stays in, the darker the color is. And I left mine in for about an hour and a half, so right after that we are going to rinse our tank top and save the dye that we have left over for the next time we want to add color to something. The reason why I chose blackberries instead of something like hibiscus tea or spinach or red cabbage is because I'm not the most colorful person in the world, and I wanted a more neutral color within my wardrobe. And as deceiving as this may be, it actually makes a purplish gray color. So I thought that would work well for me, and here it is after we let it air dry. Now we are going to start planning out our lino cuts. So it's important to find references that interest you, whether that's through Google or searching through old books and magazines. And I've really been vibing with the sun, probably because it's getting close to summer. So I went searching for various suns that could be found as tarot cards, or possibly a more feminine or androgynous version of heraldry, also known as the sun's splendor, which I think is pretty cool because it's used a lot in alchemy. So I think that's pretty interesting. And after you've remixed your own version of of those references, you're going to take that linoleum piece and trace it so you can map out how much space you have for your design, so then you can transfer it. Now that it's ready to transfer, you are going to either trace the lines from the back of it, or just do what I do and completely scribble on the back and get all of that to transfer as much as possible. And then you can just go back and fill in whatever lines need to be darker, since I have pretty weak eyes and that helps me see what I am carving. And what's pretty cool about linoleum is that it's actually a natural material, and it has a linseed back, and since we will be carving it and using it as a stamp, it can be used on so many different projects in the future, and that's assuming you're only making one layer and you're not going to be carving more and using another color. Now that your design is sketched out, it's time to start carving. And as you can see, I have my cute little lino carver with various blade sizes for different cuts. And before I get carving, I like to warm up my linoleum with my hairdryer just to make it softer to carve, since I am a bit of a weakling with no upper body strength. And remember to carve away from your body, because if you are not careful, you will get stabbed. And whatever is being carved will show up as white or whatever your undercolor under your paint is. what inspired me to repurpose this tank top. As we know, we are in a bit of a climate crisis, and one of the top contributors is the fast fashion industry. And fast fashion is considered to be inexpensive clothing that uses unethical or unsustainable materials and labor that is harmful for the environment. And since it can be easily mass-produced, it's usually thrown away in landfills, and that ultimately pollutes the earth. And I definitely encourage you to try and avoid it when possible. I know it's a privilege in our society to not shop fast fashion, but if you're able to, there are many brands that use sustainable and ethical materials and labor, or thrifting or buying secondhand is always a fun option. And of course, making your own clothing, and in this case, repurposing. I know you have that one garment in your closet that you don't want to get rid of, but you know you won't wear anytime soon, so you might as well give it a new life and repurpose it. And it's a really cool and fun way of contributing to bettering the environment. Even if it already has designs or logos, remix it and make it your own. Artists love to add on to other people's art and ideas, so why not experiment with your own clothes? Now that we have our carvings ready, it's time to start printing. And I decided to mix a forest green paint since that's kind of my happy color, but you can make whatever color your heart desires. When you print, you want to use a clean and dry brayer and have the paint evenly distributed onto the lino cut. And I'm using some disposable plates, but you can use a paint palette or even a cutting board to apply the paint to your brayer. And when you are rolling the paint onto linoleum, you want to be as light as a feather when you roll onto it. It helps it get an even distribution of paint. Once you have enough paint, carefully place that lino cut onto your surface, flip it over, and then rub it with some sort of flat surface. I used a candle jar, but to make sure every bit of paint transfers onto your practice paper. Test runs on some paper just to make sure it's going to show up on how you want it and to get a feel for how much paint you need. I realized some of my carvings didn't want to show up, so I washed the paint off my lino cut and I made my cuts deeper. And it's okay to not get it right the first or second time. That's why it's important to test it out first so you can be happy with your final result. Just make sure that your lino cut is bone dry because we are using water-soluble paints, so having the smallest bit of water will make that paint act up and it will transfer weirdly when you print. I didn't have fabric paint, so these printing paints will do, but the rules still apply, so the paint will transfer evenly. Now that you have practiced and you've made a print that makes you happy, it's time to print on our fabric. I stretched mine onto an old poster board just to make sure it doesn't bunch up when I print. Then I loaded up my lino cut with paint, carefully placed it onto the spot where I wanted it, and turned it around and rubbed my candle char just to make sure I got it on smoothly. Then it was time for the big reveal and I instantly fell in love with my new design. I'm super happy with how it came out and I hope you enjoyed learning a new way to repurpose clothing and learn a bit more about how you can make a difference to benefit the environment.